It is literally embedded in his DNA to give this performance. He was born to do this. Woo! That's the best I'm gonna do, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Isaac Joel, and you are listening to The Critics. And today we're gonna be breaking down Lionsgate's latest film, Michael. This is hitting theaters on April 24th. The latest music biopic from Graham King, the producer who just recently did Bohemian Rhapsody. Some people really love that movie. Some people really hate it. I'm one of those that's kind of like right in the middle where like I completely understand both sides of the spectrum, but my natural love and curiosity on the inside of Freddie Mercury and Queen and how they made their music and all those pivotal moments in their life, you honestly just can't resist that love for the actual artist themselves. And so I just kind of naturally love those type of movies. My personal favorite is Rocket Man. I think that is the best all-time music biopic movie, even next to Straight Outta Compton. I'll put those two right next to each other. But what Rocket Man does so perfectly is it says, let's not make another music biopic movie. We've seen those a million times. Let's actually make a musical and incorporate the music aspects into the person and the subject that we're studying. And I think they did such a great job at evaluating Elton John's life. And so I kind of want you guys to know the bar and the spectrum that I'm putting this movie, Michael, at. And this movie has been through so much controversy over many, many years of being in production, from casting to legal arguments and debates and even family feuds and the press and the public just kind of pressing in on Michael. And with Michael Jackson, you're always going to get controversy. There's always going to be people who are really excited about knowing more about the King of Pop. And then there's going to be people who really believe in the allegations and that he was guilty. And so you're either on, again, these completely polar opposite sides of the spectrum. I'm one of the people, again, that's right in the middle. A lot of the stuff that is kind of online, I've watched so many theories on Michael Jackson over the years, from the Illuminati eras to the most recent allegations, and they're still going to court over him. Even his daughter is taking John Braca to court over the estate and how they've kind of managed everything. She says the movie is kind of complete lies and all of the fans are living in a fantasy. So there is just so much fuel to this fire with the movie. So it really just kind of depends on which side of that spectrum you land on and how you're going to walk in with this movie. If you don't really care about Michael and kind of his era of music, then you're probably not really going to be interested in this movie at all. But if you're someone like me who grew up very heavily on his music, I was a die-hard fan. My origin story with Michael Jackson dates all the way back to Circuit City. Does anyone out there remember Circuit City? That store that used to be open, it was kind of like a Best Buy or like a Fry's Electronics store, where they just had like everything that you possibly could need. They had DVDs, CDs, cables, printers, paper, whatever it is, your office supplies or home electronic needs, where you can go there. And I miss Circuit City so much. I remember being a kid and my mom taking all of us, my siblings, there, and she purchased herself a kind of like DVD of all of Michael Jackson's greatest hits. At that young of an age, I had no idea who he was, other than casually the songs that would play through like the radio or, you know, in movies and stuff like that. But I really had zero knowledge of Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5, and all that kind of stuff. And so this DVD went through all of his greatest music videos throughout all of time, really. And I think the first one on there was Billie Jean. And then I watched Beat It. and then Thriller and Smooth Criminal. You want to be starting something, and so on and so forth. And then I started doing more research on the computer on him and printing out his lyrics and just studying everything that I could about Michael Jackson because he was just so fascinating. And to me, I felt like I was discovering music for the very first time. Like I had basically never heard or knew music could be so appreciated until I listened and saw Michael Jackson. Because when you listening to him is one thing for sure, but when you watch a music video, and especially someone like me who's very into movie making, and I had no idea that he kind of panned his videos after like short films, and he would actually go out and hire movie directors, not music video directors, and he would edit them and write them to feel like you were watching a movie. And I got that experience right away from that young of an age. And it really inspired me to want to be making such intricate, detailed films that I make today. And you never really realize that sort of thing. I always wanted to be a filmmaker, but Michael Jackson really brought it to my attention that like, oh wow, this could be so much more through across all platforms. It's not just movies, it's music too. And I've done a lot of music videos throughout the years myself. I'm a music video director too. I've directed so many different projects like that. And this man has really inspired me over the years. And my biggest regret is not being able to go to one of his concerts. I've never got to see him live. I was going to see the This Is It tour because he announced that was going to be like the final tour, like the last time that he was going to be performing like that throughout all of his songs. And even the Jackson 5 were going to come out on stage with him and tour with him. So there was a lot of excitement to this. And then he passed away. And then a couple of months later, they released this documentary called This Is It that had all of the behind the scenes footage from them practicing and rehearsing this tour. And it was just so mind blowing. I remember watching it in theaters at such a young age. And I remember other kids, I couldn't do this because I was way too shy or embarrassed, but there were other kids and people that would stand up and literally start to kind of like dance and move along, or just kind of like rock their heads out and just kind of stand there and tap their foot or whatever it is. And it was like you're literally at a concert. And so you felt that energy. And so that was the closest that I was ever going to get to experiencing Michael, up close like that, is on the big screen. The only way that I've been experiencing him as a literal child. So being invited to see Michael at an early screening was like full circle moment. Like it was literally my life has been leading to this moment, and it was everything I could have possibly imagined. I walked in with a lot of high expectations and kind of my own doubts and fears from these controversies, all the way to kind of the Bohemian Rhapsody producers being attached to this, because with that comes strange editing. And that's the stuff that I really did not like about Bohemian as well. All the fast cuts, all the montages. Every 5 minutes, it's a montage of a song and records going by and the charts are raising and them performing here and there. And you've seen this movie a million times. There's nothing different and new being brought to Michael. I have to point that out, that this is cut and dry, your typical music biopic movie. You either love that or you hate it. But I have to say, because of the director, Antoine Fuqua, he perfectly nails the blueprint of music biopic films. I have to go through this man's category with you guys that are unfamiliar with Antoine Fuqua. Obviously, he's done Training Day, but also to add on top of that, Magnificent Seven. I remember seeing that in theaters with my pops. The Equalizer trilogy, Shooter, Olympus Has Fallen, Southpaw, Emancipation, The Guilty, and he's also worked on documentaries. He's done so many different films throughout his career. He truly is one of the greatest of all time. And I think you have to get a GOAT in order to direct and adapt the GOAT that is Michael Jackson, the king of pop, onto the big screen. I loved all of these movies, by the way, that Antoine Fuqua. I have Southpaw on Steelbook copy, and it is just one of my favorite boxing movies of all time. The Guilty is a very low budget movie on Netflix, but I still really enjoyed it and it stuck with me. I just think that Antoine Fuqua was the perfect choice. And so as soon as you hear a director like that being attached to this movie, you're like, okay, all right, man, I'm sold. I'm confident that that man will make every choice that is best and responsible for the legacy that is Michael Jackson. A lot riding on this movie, a lot riding on it. And if this movie, for whatever reason, was not successful, then we're not going to see how it ends. And I'm going to get a little bit into that. I want to talk about the cast for this real quick, because it takes a damn near perfect casting to put together a story like this. And, you know, I actually have to throw out there again, one of my favorite biopic movies is actually Selena. I remember having that on VHS growing up. And that is when I think of perfect casting, that movie really comes to life. You know, Jennifer Lopez, Jafar Jackson literally brings Michael Jackson back to life perfectly. He is the nephew of Michael. He is related to him. This has never been done before, I think, before on a scale like this, but it is literally embedded in his DNA to give this performance. He was born to do this. And he is just so magnificent and perfect. There were so many times when I was watching Jafar Jackson and giving his performance, I really believe that there were 4 different actors that were playing Michael throughout all of these different eras of his life, from him being a teenager to a young adult, and then before his nose job, and then post nose job, and then his pigmentation issue and his skin changing colors. This man really transformed himself. And big applause to the makeup department, because this is not Rami Malek fake teeth Freddie Mercury. No. This is Michael Jackson. You feel like you are seeing him right before your eyes. And again, it just feels like this is the closest that I'm ever going to get to experiencing Michael in person, is on the big screen like this. And so he just gave such a strong performance. He spent so many years learning acting. He's not even an actor. He's never acted before. There's nothing that we can point at and that we can look at in his history, in his IMDb, that points to him having any type of experience. I watched so many interviews of the producers and directors kind of talking about how and why they casted him. And it just really feels like they never really confirmed why they felt like he could do it, because the kid didn't know how to act. He didn't know how to dance. He didn't know how to sing. He didn't know how to do any of that stuff. So, and he honestly doesn't even look that much like Michael Jackson even to begin with. It's not like he does like a great impersonation of him and they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly why he should do it, because he sounds just like no, there's really zero evidence indicating that he could do it. It was literally all of these people coming to him and being like, hey man, would you be down to spend a couple of months learning how to dance and moonwalk and do this and do that and learn how to sing? And then the instructors and choreographers will get back to the producers and be like, listen, I'm being completely honest with you. I do not think Jafar can do this role. I don't think he's got what it takes. That right there is like, okay, why are they fighting so hard for him to do it? What makes them believe that he can do this? Well, after a couple of months of hard work and dedication on Jafar's part, the man completely embodied Michael Jackson. Some way, somehow, he came out of this boot camp stronger than ever. And honestly, it was the best decision that anyone ever made, because he really embodied him. Miles Teller plays John Bronca, who later on inherits Michael's estate. And he's actually being sued right now by Michael's daughter, Paris Jackson. And there's a lot of drama kind of going on between there. Miles Teller is kind of one of the only like big like A-list actors in this film, and it feels a little weird that John Branco would cast this role for him, because he is a producer on the film, obviously, and just feels kind of a little egotistical, I guess, in a sense. And I feel like there's a little bit more left to be desired from that character. But again, we'll kind of get a little bit more into that later in this video. Obviously, Colman Domingo, holy shit, you do not get any better than this man himself. Most recently, he was on Running Man. I know he's on the latest season of Euphoria. He obviously plays Norman Osborn in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which I love him for that. I really wish they would cast him as live action Green Goblin. I would totally be down for that because this man is despicable. Holy shit. He plays Joe Jackson, Michael's father, his manipulative father, who kind of takes advantage of Michael at such an early age. And there's actually an old TV for movie. And there's actually an old TV movie about the Jackson 5 story. I think it's like 3-4 hours long. And I remember watching that as a kid, and you really learn everything that you need to know about Michael and his entire story. It really is kind of like the ultimate biopic. And it's not really even like a heavy montage, you know, this song and that song. That stuff is really in the background while the story and the drama is at the forefront center of it. And I really loved that documentary. If you guys have a chance to check it out, I highly recommend you look it up. It's old, but it's a movie. It's like a movie kind of documentary is what it feels like. Nia Long plays Katherine Jackson in this film, the mother to Michael, kind of the all source and inspiration, and even you can argue and say the soul of Michael, and you can kind of see where he gets his sensitivity from. And that really is the best relationship that he has, I think, throughout his entire life, because he wasn't even that necessarily close to his brothers. So the movie depicts. And I also really want to talk about Giuliano Valdi, who plays younger Michael, and he was just so incredible. He did not give a weird kind of cringy, strange child performance of little Michael. He gave a real authentic role. It felt like he was playing a character, and you believed him. You believed all the suffering that he was going through internally, and the loneliness too. You know, that's kind of one of the things that really surprised me, I think, walking out of this film, is how lonely Michael was throughout his entire life. This movie is really just kind of stacked with so many talented supporting roles, and I loved that for this movie. I think if it wasn't for the supporting roles, it wouldn't be as strong as it actually is. And so casting is really just at like 100% here. I really want to kind of talk about the costume design and the wardrobe and the settings and the background that they actually made for this movie. And all of it was just so magnificent, honestly, to look at. All of the different outfits that Michael has worn out from such a young age to being an adult. And you really kind of just are hypnotized by this man and his talent and his style and his swag and how effortless it is. And it just seems like everything was just so effortless. And I kind of forgot how much I love looking at movies like from this era. You know, if you love movies that are kind of like, you know, from the 70s and 80s and, you know, 60s, kind of like that era of time, this is perfect for you because it doesn't feel like they're playing, I guess, you know, like costumes or theater or whatever like that, and like they feel fake. They feel really authentic from the textures and the layers and the patterns that they're all wearing. And the costumes was just a real huge standout for me. That was something I really walked away impressed by with this movie. One of the things that I really just did not enjoy about it was the writing, was the kind of like montage Wikipedia style. That is always going to be these biopics' Achilles heel. They just can't resist it. They just don't know how to be creative or unique and come up with new and interesting ideas on how to interpret these stories. Some great biopics that come to mind that kind of take real life people and want to tell their story, but not in a cookie cutter kind of way. Steve Jobs with Michael Fassbender. I know that's not necessarily a music example here, but the way that that tells the story of Steve Jobs and him kind of going out on stage throughout these, like, I believe like 3 pivotal moments of him presenting different Apple products throughout his life, and all of the behind the scenes stuff that's kind of going on as he's, you know, getting ready to do the show, and talking to all of his people and his managers and his family members and his wife and his daughter. And it's a really unique way to tell the story of Steve Jobs in a way that you've never expected. I know I mentioned this already earlier, but Rocket Man's such a good example. Mamma Mia, taking the music of ABBA and threading it into an actual story that has absolutely nothing to do with ABBA. I think there's so many different ways that you can go about telling these stories, and I really, really wish studios would just take more time in doing this, you know, because we most recently had the Whitney Houston movie and Bob Marley. I didn't watch the Bruce Springsteen movie with Jeremy Allen White, and or the Bob Dylan one with Timothée Chalamet, just because it literally just was starting to get watered down. It was like one after another, and it was like, okay, when are they going to make the kind of Avengers movie where they all come together in the studio? And I guess that would be them performing, you know, We Are the World. I would love to watch a movie like that, kind of like Saturday Night Live a la style. But this movie doesn't really do anything interesting with its timeline. It's very predictable. I kind of predicted everything that was going to happen before I even like walked into the theater. So I was kind of laughing every time this would happen and then that would happen. And I don't want to kind of necessarily get into spoilers. I'll kind of leave that all for you guys. But this movie does end on a weird, strange kind of note. And I don't consider this to be a spoiler at all. So just letting you guys know. For those that don't know, this movie was shot to its, like, I believe it's like fullest extent. Like, they shot the entire film, the entire story, and they ran into some legal issues on their ending, which caused them to have to go back and completely rework the final act, the third act, the ending to their own story. And which is really embarrassing on their part, that they didn't realize that they couldn't show certain people in their own clauses. It's a whole mess. It's really embarrassing on their part, to be honest with you, because they just completely wasted time shooting something that they absolutely cannot use and ends up being deleted. Like, you will never see that footage ever again. And so I really don't know how they're going to kind of complete Michael's story. The rumor right now going around is that it is a 2-part film, that they had to split into 2 parts. And so the way that this film ends, it ends on such a high inspirational note. Really, you just feel so pumped up and excited now for Michael and what's to come next for him, if anything. But it ends on a title card that says something kind of along the lines of his legacy continues. And you have no idea what the hell that means. It's not necessarily a to be continued. It's not a Michael part 1, you know, part 2 next year. Like, there is really very little indication that you're going to get a follow-up, a part 2, a sequel to exactly this. Because honestly, with that title card, I would just believe, like, okay, well, his story continues. Yes, of course, we know that his story lives on. The legacy of him will forever live on. His story will forever continue. That could mean a million different things. Is that a metaphor? Are you being literal? It's kind of not that real literal. And so that, to me, was the weird place to end it. Other than that, everything before that worked for me. The scenes prior, building up to that, was like, okay, this is pretty strong. I didn't love the first like 5-10 minutes of the movie, because that's always the like, oh my God, what are we doing? How are they going to handle this? You know, and it wasn't really clear right away how good the movie was going to be. until it really started to kind of just kick it up a little bit. And I appreciated so many different aspects of this film. I really loved it. I highly recommend that you guys go check it out as soon as it comes out on April 24th, which at this point in time will be this weekend. I saw it the week prior, so I saw it like a week ago before you guys are even watching this. And I've been sitting on my thoughts. I've had to wait to put this review out. And I've had a lot of time, honestly, at this point, to think about this movie and where I land with it. And my theory right now is hopefully this film is very successful. People love it, and they're really excited about Michael Jackson all over again. And we get that sequel that they film. We get it officially greenlit and everything like that. You know, I want an official announcement just because there hasn't been one. I want that second film to be called Jackson. I believe it has to be called Jackson in order to kind of just complete the story, the duology that is Michael Jackson. The movie is incredibly well shot and executed on everybody's part. Some of my favorite personal moments were the behind the scenes for Thriller and kind of how he communicated with the directors and the cinematographers very kind of kindly and gently on kind of his vision and how he wanted his feet to be seen on camera. He wanted everybody, the zombies, to be seen in full body. That way you knew the dance, you could learn the choreography, and it just felt like the man, like, making decisions like that was ahead of his time. Another great moment was Beat It, when he kind of wrote and came up with that song. From the actual inception of him coming up with the beat, he does this incredible thing where it's like kind of like a cappella, where like he's like imitating the beat. He's like, you know, and he's like coming up with it like live on his own, and then the drums start to kick in and they're like, okay, I see where you're going with it, and the guitar starts to kick in and they're like, all right, you know. And he just has this way of literally making music from the way that he moves and dances and does this acapellic technique. But that whole section of him doing Beat It, it was around this time when Bloods and Crips were kind of going at it against each other. It was all over the news, and so he brought a couple of these guys together, and wasn't really, and I was worried too about this scene, believe me, that it was going to be like, oh, we should all get along. But no, it wasn't that. He really was like, you know, we all have something in common here. We love music. We love dance. You know, we love to express ourselves. So I just kind of want us to, you know, freestyle, you know, kick it, you know, see what we come up with. And so they start doing that. And in doing so, they come up with the choreography of Beat It, and that becomes that. And it's just, it's really incredible seeing these moments and how all of these ideas that shaped our culture and our history were incepted from Michael Jackson. I'm going to rate Michael at this moment 9 out of 10. It really struggles with all of those basic music biopic sections that are really just kind of cookie cutter and following a basic blueprint, and I really despise those moments that feel like I'm just watching a series of montages and clips of Wikipedia facts. But when it's actual dramatization moments with Michael and his mother, or even his father, Joseph Jackson, or his brothers, or Bubbles, all of those intimate moments where it's just him, that is really where the movie shines. But also the music, it's incredible. You really feel like you're watching a concert. You really feel like you're there witnessing all of this live, and it's not rushing through any of these songs. Really, you get to see the full performance, and you're just sitting there. And there's so many moments where I was like on the edge of my seat, like, wow, look at this kid go. Look at him do the James Brown moves, do the splits, man. Look at Jafar doing the moonwalk on stage. Like, there's so many clips that went on Twitter, online, social media, that were like floating around from this movie. I felt like we're taken out of context, and I too was like, oof, that doesn't look so good, all the cutting and the editing. And that's a Bohemian Rhapsody issue, honestly. But in context, when you see the film in its entirety, it fits. It looks a lot better, and the performances are just a lot stronger. I love this movie. I cannot highly recommend it enough to you guys. I'm probably going to see it another 5 times. I can't wait to get the steel book and the vinyl and all that stuff. It just feels so good, that Michael Jackson is finally back. It just felt like, with the HBO documentaries that came out and all that stuff and the allegations still hitting and all the drama that's still happening. It's just like, even in death, this man cannot have peace. And it just sucks. It just really, really sucks. When I'll never forget being a kid, seeing on the news, him passing and them taking his body to the hospital. And it was just so heartbreaking. And it was like, wow, a dream of mine will never be realized, of seeing him live and in person and anything like that. And the man truly inspired me. And I'm lost for words, honestly, on this film. I had such a good time watching it. I cried. I cheered. I tried not to do that whole sing-along thing, but I couldn't resist. I started singing along towards the middle part of the film and then on, just because the more it kept going, the stronger and stronger it was getting. The movie is clocked in at 2 hours and 7 minutes, which, in my opinion, it feels long in a good way. I say that in a compliment, because you get to really live in all of these moments throughout his life and feel the tension and everything build up. And there were so many moments, I have to point this out too, where the audience, and this was a packed house that I saw this in, they were clapping so many times throughout this movie whenever Michael stood up for himself, whenever he realized something, whenever an idea came into fruition. The audience was like proud of Jafar, of Michael. There's just so much kind of meta walls being broken when watching a movie like this. It literally just kind of blows your mind and leaves you lost for words. I honestly can kind of just go on and on about the legacy of Michael and all of my favorite songs, and I'm not even going to try and pick one, but if I had to, it would be They Don't Care About Us. I love the beat. I love the music video. I love the messaging in that. I think it's one of his best songs that he's done. But everything he's ever made is just a hit. It's just a knockout. And so I really hope that we get to see Jackson. I really hope we get to see the sequel to Michael, whatever that may be titled. And hopefully that comes out sooner rather than later. I hope we don't have to wait 2-3 years for that. Hopefully it comes out next year. This movie needs to do really well at the box office. So I encourage you all to go check it out this weekend immediately. Go see it with your family. Take everyone, and you're going to have a good time with it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, I have been your host, Isaac Joel. I'll catch you next time.